Welcome to Law Matters, a show exploring current issues of social relevance. I'm your host, Jenifer Varzlay. Today we're exploring the really daunting issue of migrant smuggling and the concerns that this causes, as well as the dangers associated with this, and exploring ways which this might be stopped or prevented in future, as well as the legal remedies surrounding this. What is clear about this topic is that migrant smuggling is a truly global concern. It doesn't respect borders and it doesn't respect different countries' laws. But what we also see in this area is that countries do have disparate regulations and do enforce this practice in very different ways. So we will need better cross-border and international laws in this area. At the moment, we're looking at a practice which is very demand-driven. That is, issues of conflict, issues of poverty, and other economic problems lead to these migrants and refugees wanting to change countries. And when we see that being the case, we have to respond by some legal way or some other intergovernmental processes to change what is happening. The other interesting aspect of this practice, which also makes enforcement and investigation challenging, is that we're not just dealing with individuals. What we tend to see in this area is that these are complex criminal organizations and networks which have been formed, and they go beyond borders and between countries, which makes it an interesting area to consider. In order to gauge public opinion on this issue, we asked people about their views on this topic.
I think we need to sort of give people more hope in terms of getting into the country legally, and rather than necessarily putting them off from coming into the country directly, suggesting alternative ideas, and I think we definitely need to crack down on the gangs that are smuggling people into the country.
I think if we sorted our borders out, so there was a process whereby migrant smugglers were brought in a way that was safe for them and us, i.e. some kind of plan set up so that where they would be sent to. I think that would prevent people smuggling migrants in.
I believe if they provided better facilities at the point of origin, either through medical help with relocation, it would prevent a lot of people trying to take the route of being smuggled into other countries.
Definitely, I think any human in a one-on-one situation would do sort of something like that to help another human out. I mean, we're all people. They're not numbers in the newspapers that you read about. They are people, and there's a story behind every individual.
Yes, I think we should, because otherwise they're going to die, or worse, they're going to get smuggled, or raped, or it puts them in a very vulnerable situation. I think we definitely should.
I don't believe we should be helping transport them. Again, if better facilities were provided at the original source, for instance, then that would be better suited to help relocate people maybe closer to their own original homes than transporting them to a foreign country that they might suffer difficulties with integration and other issues.
To assist us in understanding how these challenges might be dealt with moving forward, we'll be speaking with Dr Paolo Campana of Cambridge University. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
To begin with, why are migrant smuggling operations set up in the first place?
Well, unfortunately, there is a huge demand for leaving certain countries. Syria is one example. Other countries in Africa are another example, Eritrea, for instance, Gambia. So there is a demand coming from people. People are leaving their own country for a number of reasons. And this demand is met by the smugglers.
Absolutely. And then how are these smuggling operations organized? What form do they take?
Well, if you're looking for a Mr. Big in this market, you won't find him. So there is no such thing as Mr. Big. what you will find is a number, possibly a fairly large number, of independent smugglers, actors that organize their operations. I have looked at the trend, like the macro level trend, both for the Central Mediterranean route, which is basically Italy, crossing from Libya into Sicily, and the Eastern Mediterranean route, which is crossings from Turkey into Greece. Now, if you look at these trends, that's very interesting, I think. You see huge growth. This, we can call it markets for smuggling services. These markets have the ability to grow often over a very short period of time. So that means that there is no monopoly. And it means that the barrier to entries, meaning the ability for new smugglers to start offering their smuggling services, is there. And it's, to go back to the beginning of the question, it basically means that there are independent actors. And when the demand increases, more people will join this market because it can be very profitable.
And I think that's really interesting how you focused on the demand of this. How many people are wanting to use these types of services, or how many have typically crossed through these routes?
Yes, so it's hard to say how many people are willing without just giving a number.
In general terms,
what we can say, what we know, because we have data on that, is the number of people who have crossed the EU border. There is an EU agency called Frontex, and they collect all the data from the member states. So for the Central Mediterranean route, meaning Italy, over the last 2 years, on average, we saw 150,000 arrivals. For the Eastern Mediterranean route, which is Greece, for 2015 only, we saw a huge peak. There was more or less about 850,000 arrivals, meaning people crossing into the European Union irregularly.
So it's been reported that this practice is quite dangerous, and I know that you've mentioned that a search and rescue operation was started in Italy and then at the EU level. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, so in October 2013, Italy launched a massive search and rescue operation called Mare Nostrum. That was a response to a major incident, a very tragic event that happened on the 3rd of October 2013, when a fishing boat carrying 518 people on board sank just outside the island of Lampedusa. And unfortunately, 366 people died. So there was a public outcry, and this rescue operation was launched. During the first year, it was run by the Italian government. Then it became an EU operation, and it's still running at the moment. It's called EU NAVFOR Med, also called Operation Sophia.
And I know you said that this has created, a moral dilemma of sorts, because if you help these people to get to their ultimate destination, I know you had some statistics in this area about how this impacts the demand side of things coming from, Africa or Syria.
It's a massive moral dilemma, because there have been research saying that this search and rescue operation has indeed possibly increased the demand for these journeys. By making them more accessible, and this is probably true. At the same time, if we don't do anything, then we will see like thousands of people dying at sea. So, and here is the moral dilemma. So if we do something, we increase the number of arrivals. If we do nothing, we increase the number of deaths. Can we just stand still?
No, I don't think so, and that's fascinating. For those of our viewers that want to get involved with this issue and are concerned about refugees and prospective migrants, what can they do to learn more about this or to get involved?
There are a number of charities, NGOs, also here in Cambridge. There is an action group helping refugees here. There is a group helping refugees in Calais. There are other groups helping refugees. There are 60,000 refugees stuck in Greece at the moment. so people can get in touch with this group. I think there is also a need for medical care in these camps. And I went to Calais, I went to Thessaloniki, and I saw like doctors, volunteers working there. So that's also another way to help.
Great, and thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure.
It is estimated that 2 of the world's key smuggling rings or smuggling routes generate almost $7 billion for criminals. And as long as we see that these are the profits that are being made, you will see this criminal conduct continue to occur. And the issue then becomes, how do we change this? How do we tackle this from a legal perspective? And I think more importantly, how do we as countries work together to make sure that the laws are truly international in their scope? In so doing, we will then see that this practice will begin to change. It is also the case that we must deal with the underlying causes for these global population movements. This, I think, is the more challenging issue. It is the more politically charged issue, but still it must be dealt with. Given that this is a very demand-driven process, we have to deal with those issues. Then when it comes to the legal regulation of this practice, what we also need to see is greater powers for the investigation of this criminal practice, and also these must go between countries as well as within countries. When we see this occur, I think we will start to see some changes. The politicalization of this whole issue makes it difficult to look beneath this and just understand the key issues regarding helping people and ensuring that any passage made is safe. But this is something for us to look at in another episode, perhaps. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time on Law Matters.